And step one is I describe how I'm feeling about starting the discussion. And frequently, and you might want to write these kind of things in, I would say things like, I am hesitant about discussing this. Think of another word other than hesitant, but I normally use hesitant about discussing this because, and then the because bit is really about because I don't want you to blow it out of proportion, because I don't want you to get it out of perspective, because the last time I raised it, it took you a while to really understand what I was saying. Because I want you to see it in context. Does that make sense? So I start off that kind of way. Why would I start like that? Why would I say, you know, Joyce, I'm somewhat hesitant about discussing this because I really don't want you to get this out of proportion. And then I'd go on. This then starts the climate of the conversation, and they go, they're immediately on cue. So I'm not talking about the weather, I'm not talking about the latest football results, or I'm not talking about the stock market or anything else that happens to be first and foremost on people's minds. I'm talking about, Jane, I just want to talk to you of an issue. I'm somewhat hesitant about discussing this because I want to make sure that you get it in proportion and perspective. And then step two. But when it's what you saw, what you heard. When I see you discussing with others in little groups, and I notice that you're somewhat short and you're not particularly friendly, and I get the feeling that you're fault-finding and picky regarding Amanda. So you say what you exactly saw. Don't be global like, I think you got an attitude, because you're gonna go down in a pile, because what you're doing is you're just focusing on that. You've got to drill down and think about what is it you really see? What's really going on? What are the things you see, which are them being fault-finding, picky, they're short, they're not friendly, they lack tolerance, they're in their little groups. That's the stuff that sits down here that you need to explore. Does that make sense? So specificity is really important, because if you say to someone, oh, you've got attitude, they'll come back and say, no, I haven't. What are you on about? But if you can give specifics, done. It's a bit like if I got picked up for speeding and the copper said, you were speeding, and I said, well, how do you know? He says, well, you weren't driving carefully. And I said, well, what do you mean carefully? Yeah, I was driving carefully. Sure, I was doing a 160k zone, but I was doing it carefully. What are you on about? Right? So we'd have a big discussion about what driving carefully meant. Does that make sense? But if he says, you're done because you're doing 68 in a 60 zone, where can I go on that? You know, it's much more specific. So think about, before you have the conversation about the specificity, what do you actually notice here? So step two, you describe what happened. When I saw whatever it was, those sorts of features. When I saw you discussing it with others and having little groups, and you tend to be fault-finding and picky, and you tend to be very short, not friendly, and not smiling. Describe what effect it had on you and others. What would be the effect? What's it do to others? Yeah. So others, and then I see that others feel down. What's it do to morale? It affects morale in the place. There's not a good feeling here in the shop, and therefore it affects customer service, and that's not what we want in the shop. Is that fair enough? Step three? Is that what's happening? Is there anything else happening that you see in terms of the effect? No? So you see people put down, you see morale being lowered, there's not a good climate and culture in the shop, you might see people upset. They're the sorts of things you're noticing. Now, what would you like? Step four. what I'd like now is, what would you like? Right, so what I'd like now is for you, now what I'd like you to do is I would like you to stop fault finding and picking, and I would like to see a really friendly attitude and a big smile on your face, and a very different attitude, and certainly one where you're not having little cliques and discussing things in groups. Add to the list as much as you like. Does that make sense? Say it very clearly what you'd like. Again, I'm assuming you've done your homework and you've thought through what you really like. And then there's the little phrase, but maybe there is something I haven't thought of. Why would you put that in on the end there? Why would you stick that in? You've gone through all of this, step 1, step 2, step 3, and you say it all at once, by the way. You don't give them a chance for come back at all. Then you say, what I'd like now is, and you say what you'd like, them to be friendly, with a positive attitude, not in their little cliques, a different approach at work where they're helpful, going out of their way, being assistants to people, and of course giving good customer service. All the things you want. Then there's a little phrase, but maybe there is something I haven't thought of. Why would you stick that in at the end? Yeah. Yeah, because sometimes, occasionally, because you've gone in, bang, 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 like you should. You've got good evidence. It's there in front of you. You don't want to let this person get away with this any longer. This has gone on long enough. Now it's time to go bang, 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 but maybe there is something you've missed. Because occasionally, in my own experience, when I had staff, and I use this, occasionally there'd be something that you wouldn't be aware of. Because as the manager, you're not aware of everything. You try to be, but you know, they're pretty clever. They hide little stuff from you, you know, and you're not across it all. So you put that in just to give yourself a loophole in case you need it. Right? In case you need it. It's a really critical phrase you must put in. And then you listen to their response.